Unifying business models. Fundamental living system theory. Whether we realize it or not, the world is made up of systems, each part tied to another through countless, often invisible relationships. Everything is connected with everything. We all know that a system is made up of interconnected elements or events. But sometimes those connections can be surprising. What's the link between potatoes grown in Central Europe and penguins in Antarctica? Or between grass and how far an Australian kangaroo can jump? These things may seem completely unrelated, but in reality, they're part of interconnected systems. Here's what I mean. For years, we used powerful pesticides like DDT to fight potato pests. Over the decades, millions of tons of DDT were sprayed across the globe. But here's the problem. DDT doesn't break down. It builds up inside living organisms, and who is one of the top creatures where it accumulates the most? Penguins. I'll let you figure out the connection yourself between the grass and how far an Australian kangaroo can jump. We can't keep track of all the connections in a system, but to create tools that help us see these links and understand the global impact of our local actions, we need to know what a system is, how it works, and what helps it stay alive and stable. We are surrounded by systems. We consist of systems. We interact with systems. That is why we need to learn to understand systems, to work with them, not just survive in them, but design them to serve us. That's something we can learn from living nature. Living systems are the most complex systems on our planet, and they develop lots of mechanisms to achieve success, flourishing, and even immortality in unpredictable and often hostile environment. Our societies are made up of billions of people and millions of organizations. Yet, from a genetic standpoint, we're still wired like our ape ancestors. We can only manage around 30 close personal relationships. To handle today's complexity, we rely on our highly developed minds, which help us create rules, structures, and systems. There are at least 60 different business theories designed to help managers, but it's often unclear when to use each one or what outcomes to expect. In practice, business management is usually based on common sense, gut feeling, and personal experience. But in today's fast-changing and uncertain world, that may not be enough. Fundamental systems theory brings all these theories together into one unified approach, guiding businesses toward practical and effective solutions. Billions of people, millions of systems. For the practicality, it should be one way to understand them all. Living systems and business systems have a lot in common. They both grow, change, and respond to their environment and shaped by human behavior. In fact, business is a living system. Even technology, which seems separate, is made through human thinking, and thinking is part of how living beings work. Unfortunately, general systems theory doesn't completely explain how living systems work, and it needs some adjustments to do that. Why? Complexity in life differs from complexity in physics. Physics studies complex systems that behave predictably, even if they're hard to calculate. Life creates complexity that is purposeful, emergent, and unpredictable, because it's always responding, adapting, growing, and changing, like something you'd say in a lecture or talk. Let's talk about complexity, because it means very different things in physics and in life. In physics, complexity is usually deterministic. That means even really complex systems, like the weather or how planets move, still follow exact rules. If we know the starting point, we can predict what comes next. Think of calculating a planet's orbit. It's complicated, but still predictable. Reductionist. Physics breaks things down to understand them. It assumes if you understand the parts, you understand the whole. Like studying a car engine by taking apart the pistons, spark plugs, and valves. Quantifiable. You can describe physical complexity with math. Formulas, equations, models. For example, weather forecasts are built from mathematical models of wind, temperature, and pressure. Limited in emergence. Physics does recognize patterns that emerge, like waves or turbulence, but they don't have meaning or purpose. A whirlpool might form in a river, but it's just physics. It doesn't want anything. In living systems, it's a whole different story. They're adaptive and purposeful. Living things have goals, like staying alive, growing, or reproducing. A lizard dropping its tail to escape a predator isn't random. It's intentional. They respond to context. The same input can cause different reactions depending on the situation. Living systems maintain and repair themselves all the time. If you cut your finger, your body starts healing right away. You don't have to think about it. They show deep emergence. Life gives rise to things you can't explain just by looking at the parts. A single brain cell doesn't think, but put enough of them together, and you get thought, memory, even creativity. They're nonlinear and deeply connected. What happens in one part affects the others in complex, often unpredictable ways. Your stress level affects your hormones, which affect your mood, which affects your choices, and so on. So, while both physics and biology deal with complex systems, living systems are messy, adaptive, and intentional. To really understand them and manage things like businesses, teams, or societies, we need to think more like nature does, not just like a machine. To achieve the same capabilities as living systems, business needs a fundamental living system theory. Why this new theory is needed? Business is living system. That is why we need adaptation of general system theory to business. In other words, to living systems. Fundamental living systems theory gives us a common language between business theories and living nature. So, we will now have two versions of system theory: general system theory and fundamental life system theory. It's not really important which theory is bigger or should include the other. What matters is that our world has both living and non-living systems, and while they are connected, they follow fundamentally different rules for how they work. One theory, one language, from cells to corporations. There is no single business model that fully aligns with all the core principles of even general systems theory. However, some multidisciplinary theories come close by combining ideas from different fields. Fundamental living systems theory gives managers a practical framework for applying interdisciplinary knowledge for effective solutions and meaningful recommendations. So, if there's one thing to take away from today, it's this: one framework, many disciplines, smarter decisions. Fundamental living system theory is where biology, technology, and business thinking all come together. It gives us a common language to understand complexity, not just in theory, but in real, practical ways. Whether you're managing a team, designing a product, or leading a company, this approach helps you see the bigger picture and act more wisely. Because when we treat businesses like the living systems they are, we make better decisions, faster, and with more lasting impact.